Welcome to the next video in Chapter 7, Adverbials. If you did not watch the video about grammatical necessity, please watch that video first. Because in this video, we start talking about those elements in a sentence that do not have grammatical necessity. Adverbials are one example of the extra stuff in a sentence. They give us more information, more description, but they are not grammatically necessary for to have a complete grammatical sentence in English. It's just extra information. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is define adverbials. And the first thing we need to do is make sure that we understand that adverbials are not the same thing as adverb phrases. So please do not confuse these two terms. They are rightfully very easy to confuse with one another. What are adverb phrases? If you remember going back to chapters 4 and 5, when we were identifying phrases, adverb phrases are phrases that have an adverb as the head of the phrase. So for example, tickets for the concert sold out very quickly. Quickly is your adverb. There's a qualifier connected to the adverb, very quickly. So that phrase, very quickly, that's an adverb phrase. Okay. And our next example, we have a water pipe burst in my apartment. We have the word yesterday. Yesterday is an adverb, right? Similar to very quickly. So yesterday would be an adverb phrase. So adverbials, they're not adverb phrases per se. So what are they? Okay. Adverbials do the same thing that adverbs do, right? They modify verbs. So in those last two examples, we saw, the adverb phrase very quickly. So that tells us how. And we saw the adverb phrase yesterday. That tells us when. Adverbials have the same function. They can tell us when or where an action happened, why or how, or they can give us the frequency and tell us how often. Adverbs themselves can usually perform some of these functions. Okay. So, for example, we had the adverb phrase yesterday. Well, that tells us the when it happened. Okay. But we also have the phrase in my basement. That's not an adverb phrase. There's no adverb in the phrase in my basement, but it is modifying the verb. It's telling us where the pipe burst. Where did that bursting happen? Okay. Then we have the phrase because it was not insulated. This phrase is actually a clause. This is a subordinate clause. It's a clause that begins with a subordinate conjunction, but it's also modifying the verb. It's telling us why the water pipe burst. Okay. Then again, we had our previous example where we have the phrase very quickly. That's telling us how the concert sold out. Well, that's an adverb phrase there. Okay. And then we have the adverb frequently. So another adverb phrase. That adverb phrase is telling us how often. Okay. Now, all of these are examples of adverbials. The last two are the only that are actual adverb phrases. They have an actual adverb in them, right? The first three examples, you are dealing with something differently, okay? So adverbials may be adverb phrases, of course, right? An adverb and an adverb phrase modify a verb. So an adverbial may be an adverb phrase, but it doesn't have to be. So again, you have the examples of very quickly, frequently. Those are very typical adverbs. They have the ly suffix on them. Those are adverb phrases. They're modifying the selling out. They're telling us how or how quickly, how frequently, right? How often the show sold out or sells out. Okay, so they're modifying the verb. Okay, but you could have a noun phrase, like the phrase last night. That's a noun phrase. It's modifying the verb. It's telling us when that verb happened, but it's not an adverb. Okay? In my basement is giving me information about the verb, the location, but that's not an adverb phrase. Okay? They ran up the hill to fetch a pail of water. To fetch, I hope you recognize as an infinitive verb. To fetch a pail of water, that's an infinitive verb phrase. But now it's telling me why they ran up the hill. Again, it's modifying the verb. And then the because, the subordinate clause starting with the conjunction because, is telling us why the pipe burst. So they're giving us the how often, the when, the where, the why. They're answering some questions, giving us some extra information about the verb. It may be an actual adverb phrase with an adverb in it, or it may be some other kind of phrase. So I've drawn this big circle here. These are adverbials. These are phrases or clauses performing the function of an adverb. They are adverb-ish, adverb-like. They are adverbials. Okay, and you can see that first little circle has adverb phrases in there. So of course, an adverbial is modifying a noun, modifying a verb, sorry. So of course it may be an actual adverb phrase modifying the verb, but it could be a noun phrase. It could be a prepositional phrase, an infinitive verb phrase, a subordinate clause. All of these different types of phrases and clauses are also modifying the verb. They're giving you more information about the main verb. Okay, so I'm going to give you 4 examples. Right, 4 sentences. Stop the video, pause right now, and see if you can identify the phrases or clauses in the sentence that are modifying the verb. Where are my adverbials? And I will give you the answer in. Okay, I hope you paused the video before looking at these answers. So in number 1, we have an adverb phrase, annually. And then we have a preposition phrase, in Daytona Beach, Florida. Number 2, we have an adverb phrase, irrationally. Okay. In number 3, we have a preposition phrase, to Houston, and we have a noun phrase, next week. Okay. In number 4, we have an adverb phrase, drunkenly, and then we have a prepositional phrase, toward the exit. So you can see in number 1, the adverb phrase is telling me how often. The prepositional phrase, in Daytona Beach, tells me where, gives me location. Number 2, the adverb phrase tells me how she believes, irrationally. Number 3 gives me place and time, right? And number 4 gives me, again, a how. How did he walk? His manner of walking was drunkenly. And then where? A location, a direction of the walking toward the exit. But you have some adverb phrases, annually, irrationally, drunkenly, all traditional adverbs with that ly suffix. But you also have some prepositional phrases, some noun phrases that are giving me information about the verb. Try these next 4 sentences. Again, pause the video. See if you can identify the adverbials, the phrases that are modifying the verb. Okay, I hope you did pause the video. Now let's check your answers. Okay, number 5, we have to the Apple Store. That's a prepositional phrase. That's telling us where. To check out the new iPhones. To check out, that's an infinitive verb. This is an infinitive verb phrase. It's actually called an infinitive of purpose. It's telling us why you want to go to the Apple store. Okay. Number 6, we have an adverb phrase, silently. Then we have 2 prepositional phrases, through the window, into the room. Okay. Number 7, to stay, another infinitive verb. So another infinitive of purpose, telling us why Mallory will have to train. And every day is a noun phrase telling us how often or the frequency that she will train. Okay. Number 8, we've got a subordinate clause that starts with a subordinate conjunction, while. That gives us temporal information. When the truck roared, right, and loudly passed, we've got a direction, right? We've got another adverb phrase. Okay. Identify the meaning of each adverb. So I went over this a little bit, but we want to ask ourselves, what is that extra information? That extra information would be temporality, okay? When something happened or will happen. Frequency, how often this thing happens. Location, where the verb took place. Purpose, why this thing is happening or happened. Manner answers the question how, and cause answers the question why. What caused this to happen? Okay, so looking at all of the adverbials that we underline, what question are we trying to answer? When, where, how often, how, why. And then you want to identify the type of each adverbial. Again, each adverbial that we underlined, you need to know what is it. For example, number 1, annually is an adverb phrase. In Daytona Beach is a prepositional phrase. Pause the video here or go rewind, go back to when I discussed it a couple of slides ago. For number 2, 3, and 4, what type of phrase? It's an adverbial, but it may not be an adverb phrase. It may be a prepositional phrase or something else. Okay, let's pause and check. Number 2, that's an adverb phrase. And number 3, prepositional phrase and noun phrase. Number 4, an adverb phrase and a prepositional phrase. Okay. Same thing for number 5, 6, 7. If you remember what I said, or go back, you can rewind the video or go into chapter 7 in your textbook, and you want to identify the type of phrase. Okay. Pause the video. What do you think? Okay, number 5, we have a prepositional phrase and an infinitive verb phrase. Number 6, we have an adverb phrase and 2 prepositional phrases. Number 7, an infinitive verb phrase and a noun phrase. And number 8, we have a subclause and an adverb phrase. Prepositional phrases are very, very, very common as adverbials, okay? They can give us lots of different kinds of information. So when we see one, when we identify a prepositional phrase, we want to ask what kind of information is being conveyed. Again, is this temporal information, location, manner? Okay. So she played the piano, subject, verb, object, with gusto. What kind of information is this telling? Another prepositional phrase at 4 o'clock. What information is this telling me about the arrival? In the park, another prepositional phrase. What kind of information is this telling? A good exercise would be to write your own sentence so we can get good at identifying the types of adverbials that we might have. Okay, again, different kind of verbs will require different kinds of elements. If you can write your own sentence, you'll be well on your way to understanding these on a deeper level. And one last good practice activity is looking at different sentences that might have adverbials. For example, this. Okay, we have the subject, Morris the cat. Right? The verb, died. Now, died is an intransitive verb. It doesn't require a direct object. It cannot have a direct object. So Morris the cat died, period. That would be a complete sentence in and of itself. But we've added this extra information to give us the temporal information we need. When did Morris the cat die? And we end up with a prepositional phrase. So we can identify this. But can you identify it in pieces? Can we break it down even further? We identify each individual word and then maybe draw a tree diagram. Pause the video now. See if you can identify each individual word. What are the part of speech of each word in this phrase at the age of 17? Okay? You ready? I hope you paused it, because here's our answer, right? Morris the cat, proper noun, determiner noun, verb. At is preposition. The, an article, a determiner. Age is a noun. Of is another preposition. 17 is a number. We've got two prepositional phrases going here that end up, if we drew our sentence diagram, these would all end up as one prepositional phrase inside of the verb phrase. The verb phrase would be died at the age of 17. Okay, so we can see it's inside the verb phrase because it's modifying the verb. Okay, so the structure of adverbials, again, it can be different kinds of phrases. In this case, it's a prepositional phrase, but it's connected to that main verb because it's modifying, it's describing, it's giving us extra information about that verb. Okay. There will be an opportunity for you to practice with adverbials on Moodle. It's ungraded, it's optional, but I highly recommend you practicing with the exercises in your textbook and practicing on Moodle so that you can get my feedback and be prepared for the next quiz, which will be on Chapter 7.